a temple on the cliffs. On the edge of Newport, where Atlantic wind moves through salt grass and waves hammer the rocks below, there is a house that doesn't feel like a house at all. It feels like a monument, a private temple built in marble, designed to look eternal, even though it was built for a season that lasted only a few weeks. A place where dinners were staged like ceremonies, where entrances were designed like theater, and where the ocean provided the soundtrack. This is Marble House. It was created at the height of America's Gilded Age, when fortunes were so large they began to imitate empires, and when the richest families in the nation came to Newport to compete, not just with their neighbors, but with history itself. Marble House was meant to be a victory, a statement that one family had arrived at the top of American society. But behind the columns and chandeliers was a story of pressure, control, and a marriage built on display. And in the end, the most powerful legacy of this mansion would not be a party. It would be a voice. Tonight, we step inside Marble House and uncover how a summer cottage became a palace, how luxury turned into a cage, and how one woman transformed this mansion from a symbol of wealth into a stage for rebellion. Newport's white gold summer, where money became culture. By the late 19th century, Newport wasn't simply a resort, it was a proving ground. Every summer, America's wealth arrived like a traveling court. Private rail cars gliding into stations, carriages rolling along the cliffs, trunks of clothing packed like armor, jewelry cases locked like bank vaults. And with each arrival, the same question hung in the air. Who matters this season? Newport had rules, most of them unwritten. Who you visited first, who invited you to dinner, where your name appeared in society columns, and who didn't mention you at all. They called their mansions cottages, but everyone understood the joke, because Newport wasn't built for comfort, it was built for ranking. In this world, luxury was not private, it was language. A staircase that made a guest look small, a ballroom that made a rival feel outmatched, and a dining room where the table setting itself felt like architecture. And it wasn't only the houses, it was the calendar. Morning drives and formal calls, afternoon teas where conversation carried hidden meaning, evenings that escalated into formal dinners, music, and late-night rooms where alliances were quietly built. Because Newport society was not separate from power, it was another version of it, a system where reputation could open doors that money alone could not. And Newport had a special kind of competition, not the competition of business or industry. The Vanderbilts had already won that. This was the competition of legitimacy, the attempt to turn new money into old authority. Europe had castles and cathedrals that had stood for centuries. America had railroads, steel, and banks that rose in a generation. So the rich built quickly and built loudly, hoping architecture could supply what history had not yet given them. That is why Newport's mansions often look European. They borrow the language of palaces, columns, marble, gilt, symmetry, because those styles come with a built-in message: permanence. Even if the fortune behind them was only one market downturn away from panic. And the ocean made the performance feel larger, the smell of salt, the sound of waves, the horizon stretching past the lawns like an endless promise. Newport became the place where America's newest dynasties tried to look inevitable. And Marble House was designed to be one of the loudest performances of all. The Vanderbilt name, power that still felt insecure. To understand Marble House, you have to understand the Vanderbilt empire. Their fortune was built on movement, shipping, railroads, expansion, the infrastructure of a nation becoming modern. By the Gilded Age, the Vanderbilt name meant dominance. But dominance in business is not the same as dominance in society. In old aristocracies, status is inherited. In America, status had to be performed, and performance creates pressure. The newspapers treated the Vanderbilts like a national story. New investments, new properties, new parties. And always the same fascination. How does a family live when money stops being a limit? That fascination was admiration and suspicion. Because America loved wealth, but also feared what wealth could become. So the Vanderbilts were constantly proving themselves, even as they dominated the economy. In Newport, that proof was architectural. A mansion became a declaration of identity. It told the world what you believed about your place in the nation's hierarchy. Marble House was built for William Kissam Vanderbilt, part of the dynasty's next generation. He had money, but he needed proof. Proof that the Vanderbilt name belonged at the very top of American society, shoulder to shoulder with families whose power came not from industry, but from tradition. And at his side was a woman who understood the rules of that world with terrifying clarity. Alva Vanderbilt. Alva did not treat society as entertainment. She treated it as strategy. If society was a game, she intended to win it. She understood the power of a guest list, the power of an invitation, the power of making someone feel included or excluded. And she understood something else. In a world that rarely allowed women official authority, the household could become a kingdom. The hostess could become a force. Marble House would be her masterpiece of influence, and eventually it would become her escape route. Building the temple, marble, muth, and engineering. Marble House was not built to blend into Newport, it was built to dominate it. The architect was Richard Morris Hunt, the same name behind some of America's most ambitious mansions. Hunt understood what the Vanderbilts wanted. Not simply a home, but an image. He looked to classical architecture, the language of emperors and institutions, columns that suggest permanence, symmetry that suggests control, stone that suggests wealth without end. But Marble House had a more literal message. Its material was part of the headline. Marble, everywhere. Bright, heavy, cold to the touch, a surface that refuses to look ordinary. In a city like New York, marble could be a detail. In Newport, marble could be a weapon, because the cliffs are full of wood-frame cottages and shingle-style mansions. And then you see this, a classical facade that looks like it was shipped from Europe and placed on American ground. The choice is psychological. Wood suggests domestic life. Marble suggests institutions, a bank, a courthouse, a temple. So when guests approached Marble House, they weren't approaching a cottage, they were approaching a claim. And yet beneath that ancient look was a modern machine, steel structure, hidden systems, electrical wiring and plumbing designed to make the palace feel effortless. This is the secret of Gilded Age mansions. They are not only built, they are disguised. A modern house can admit it is modern. A Gilded Age palace had to perform history. It had to look like it belonged to a lineage. Even if that lineage was only a few decades old. Imagine the logistics. Workers carving detail that most guests will never consciously notice. A leaf in stone, a curve in wood, a molding that catches light just right. Engineers designing comfort in rooms that were meant to feel like ancient halls. Planners arranging corridors so service could move invisibly, like stagehands behind curtains. To build a palace like this, you don't just need money, you need coordination, an entire network of talent and labor moving toward a single image. Architects draw the dream, engineers make it stand. Craftsmen create the illusion that the building was always meant to exist. And then there are the decisions that never make headlines. Where to place a stair so staff will never cross a guest path. How to hide wiring and pipes inside walls meant to look ancient. How to heat rooms with marble surfaces that resist warmth. This is why these mansions feel so expensive. They aren't only constructed, they're choreographed. And Marble House rose on the cliffs as proof that choreography could be commanded if you had the money to demand it. Inside Marble House, luxury as a system. Walk through the doors of Marble House, and the first feeling is temperature. Marble holds the coolness of the ocean air. It makes every room feel controlled, like comfort has been engineered. Then comes the scale. Ceilings that rise like formal declarations. Staircases that feel designed for entrances. Rooms arranged not for daily life, but for impact. Now slow down and imagine how a guest experiences a palace like this, moment by moment. You enter a grand hall and instinctively lower your voice, not because someone asks you to, but because the room tells you to. The ceiling rises so high that conversation feels small. Light pools on polished surfaces, and every step feels like it belongs to someone important. Then the path leads you deeper, into rooms that don't just display wealth, but organize it. A dining room where the table setting is a kind of architecture, silver aligned, glassware placed like crystal instruments, chairs arranged as if the room is waiting for history to arrive. Meals here were not casual, they were rituals. A meal could last for hours, moving course by course with pauses designed for conversation. And every course carried a message: refinement, abundance, control. In the salons, culture becomes a performance of its own. Not only the music you hear, but the idea that this family belongs to the world of art and taste. The room isn't simply for listening, it is for being seen listening. And between these rooms, the house gives you frames. A doorway that turns a corridor into a stage. A staircase that creates an entrance before a person even speaks. A window that makes the ocean feel like part of the decor. Because Marble House was built to do something very specific to make guests feel the Vanderbilt world is not temporary. To make a summer weekend feel like a chapter in a dynasty, luxury also lives in the systems that make comfort feel effortless. At the turn of the century, a mansion like this was expected to be ancient ancient in style and modern in function. That meant plumbing that could handle an entire household at once, heating that could keep vast rooms comfortable, lighting that could shift a house from daylight to evening drama with the flip of a switch. Modern convenience was part of the performance because the message wasn't only that the Vanderbilts had taste, it was that they had control. But the deeper truth of Marble House is what guests didn't see. Because for every marble room, there is another world behind it. Service corridors, back stairs, bell systems, schedules that begin before dawn. Staff moved through the mansion like an invisible bloodstream. Cooks, maids, footmen, laundresses, gardeners, a full ecosystem of labor designed to keep the illusion unbroken. To keep a palace perfect, someone must always be working. And the house was built to enforce that separation. Not just socially, architecturally. If you listen closely, you can hear the mansion's two worlds colliding. In the public rooms, soft footsteps on polished floors, distant music, quiet conversation. In the service spaces, trays, kettles, laundry, doors, rules. That contrast is the true architecture of Marble House. Not only marble and gold, but the distance between those who are seen and those who keep the world running. Step outside and the scale continues. Terraces, lawns, paths, spaces designed for walking, for being seen, for letting a guest feel as if they have stepped into a private world. And then there is the view, the Atlantic just beyond the windows, restless and endless. The ocean turns the mansion into a ship of stone, always facing the horizon, always reminding you that there is something larger than money. Alva's world, the palace, the marriage, the performance in Newport. A mansion is never just a building. It is a weapon, and Alva Vanderbilt knew exactly how to use it. To the outside world, Marble House was glamour. Dinners, receptions, the rituals of the season. But inside the marriage, it was something else. A contract made visible. The Gilded Age loved the illusion of perfection, but perfection requires control. And control has a cost. A weekend in Marble House was choreographed, mornings prepared, not lived in. Afternoons spent receiving visitors, measuring respect, building alliances. Evenings formal, with dinners that moved course by course like ceremony. Because reputation was currency, and Newport was a marketplace of reputation. Think about the pressure inside that performance. The pressure to host without mistake, to keep the rooms flawless, to keep the staff invisible, to keep the family image intact, even when private life was fraying. In a society that gave women limited official power, the household became a territory of influence. If you could control the guest list, the seating chart, the introductions, you could control the social map. Marble House was designed for that kind of control. It provides rooms that separate, rooms that reveal, rooms that command attention. It makes the host the center of gravity. But it also reveals something darker. When a house is built to impress others, it can become a trap because it demands constant upkeep. Not only in money, but in emotional energy. A palace like this can outshine a marriage, but it can't heal it. And when a marriage becomes performance, the person who performs best often survives. Marble House is beautiful, but beauty can be a cage. And it's worth remembering what luxury meant in a marriage like this. It did not mean freedom, it meant visibility. A woman like Alva was expected to host perfectly, to smile perfectly, to protect the family image the way a banker protects a vault. Every dinner was a test. Every invitation was a statement. Every guest list was a map of alliances. So the house becomes a kind of script. Certain rooms belong to certain moments. A reception space where you greet people with practiced warmth. A dining room where you perform calm while decisions are made around you. A staircase where you descend at the exact time everyone is watching. And then when the guests are gone, there is silence. A silence that feels heavier inside marble walls. Because marble does not absorb sound, it returns it. In that silence, you can feel the difference between a palace and a home. A home forgives imperfection. A palace remembers it. Eventually, the performance could not hold. The marriage fractured. And in a society that treated divorce like scandal, the cost was not only emotional, it was social. Reputations could be damaged. Doors could close. Headlines could sharpen. But Alva was not built to disappear. If society wanted to punish her, she would outmaneuver it. And in time, the same skills that made her a feared hostess, discipline, strategy, the ability to command attention, would be redirected towards something that Newport society never expected. Of script. Certain rooms belong to certain moments. A reception space where you greet people with practiced warmth. A dining room where you perform calm while decisions are made around you. a staircase where you descend at the exact time everyone is watching. And then when the guests are gone, there is silence, a silence that feels heavier inside marble walls. Because marble does not absorb sound, it returns it. In that silence, you can feel the difference between a palace and a home. A home forgives imperfection, a palace remembers it. Eventually, the performance could not hold. The marriage fractured, and in a society that treated divorce like scandal, the cost was not only emotional, it was social. Reputations could be damaged, doors could close, headlines could sharpen. But Alva was not built to disappear. If society wanted to punish her, she would outmaneuver it. And in time, the same skills that made her a feared hostess, discipline, strategy, the ability to command attention, would be redirected towards something that Newport society never expected. From palace to platform, change, preservation, and the cost of legacy. The Gilded Age didn't collapse overnight. It faded, slowly, then suddenly. The 20th century brought new rules, new taxes, new labor realities, and new questions about wealth that once seemed untouchable. A mansion like Marble House does not shut down. Even empty, it requires care. Stone needs repair, roofs need maintenance, interiors need protection. And a palace on the ocean fights a quiet war every day. Salt in the air, wind, moisture, the slow wear of footsteps. It must be repaired, cleaned, protected constantly. Preservation is not a single decision. It is a long negotiation with weather, with materials, with budgets, and with time. So the story of Marble House does not end when the family stops living here. In some ways, the story becomes even more demanding, because now the palace must survive not as a private luxury, but as a public legacy, emphasis. And this is where Marble House becomes more than a monument, because Alva Vanderbilt transformed it, not only as a hostess, but as a political force. She became a supporter of women's rights, and Marble House became one of her stages, a palace built to prove elite power, used to challenge the rules of that power. Outside on the grounds, a tea house rises like an imported fantasy, Chinese-inspired, decorative, almost playful. But what happened there could be serious. Meetings, speeches, strategy, the language of politics entering a space designed for social performance. In a way, it makes perfect sense because Alva understood theater, and politics at its core is theater with consequences. When you hold a public event at Marble House, you are not only speaking to people in the room, you are speaking to the newspapers, to society, to the nation's imagination. That contradiction is what makes this house unforgettable. A temple of wealth that became a platform for change. Picture the scene. Ladies arriving in hats and gloves, stepping onto lawns where the ocean wind never stops. Banners unfurling against a backdrop built for aristocracy. Speakers choosing their words carefully because every sentence is aimed beyond the audience, toward the national conversation. It is one of the strangest images of the era. A woman using the very tools of elite society, spectacle, location, symbolism, to argue that the rules must change. And it complicates the story, because Marble House can be both things at once, a monument to inequality in a place where inequality was challenged. That doesn't erase the mansion's origins, but it does remind us that buildings outlive the intentions of the people who commission them. A palace can be built to exclude and later become a room where new ideas enter. And in that transformation, the house becomes history, not frozen, but rewritten. A stage built for glamour, used for argument, but legacy, like grandeur, always comes with a cost. The last gilded dream. Today, Marble House stands above the Atlantic, still bright, still imposing, still unreal. It reminds us that the Gilded Age was not only about money, it was about belief. The belief that wealth could buy permanence and that architecture could turn a fortune into destiny. But the ocean keeps breaking against the cliffs and time keeps moving forward. So Marble House survives now as something different. Not a private victory, but a public memory. A place where beauty and power and change share the same rooms. Visitors walk these rooms today and feel the same contrasts. The cool marble underfoot, the sudden hush in a grand hall. The way a staircase makes an ordinary step feel ceremonial. And if you look closely, you can sense what the builders could never fully control. The truth that permanence is an illusion. Even marble needs care. Even monuments depend on people. And standing here with the Atlantic below and the palace behind you, it's impossible not to feel the contradiction. This house was built as proof of permanence, yet it survives now as proof of change. A reminder that every era believes it is the final chapter, until history turns the page. This is Grand House Archives. Subscribe for the next video and join us as we continue exploring the greatest houses ever built.